Hey guys, I'm gonna do a video on how to buy a home, probably the most simple way, and explain how much easier it actually is than what I thought it was before I had ever bought a home. When I got out of prison in 2008, my parents owned a home, so I knew home ownership was a thing. But in my brain at that time, I thought in order to buy a house, you had to put 20% down, or you needed $50,000 in the bank, or some amazing thing to take place because it seemed out of reach. And it was a lot easier than I thought it was. I know today we're in 2024, mortgage rates are extremely high and home prices are also high. So I'm sure it is more difficult today than it was, but I'll give you some pointers and maybe some guidance on doing it because I think it's the most important thing. Well, yeah, I might be biased on this, but I think it's the most important way to get ahead financially. Every home that I've owned has made me lots of money, and it was something I had to do anyways, which was have housing. So some of the tips that I'll talk about is first, in order to kind of prepare yourself to buy a home, I would suggest having little to no debt. So if you have, credit card debt or consumer debt currently, student loans, I would first work on paying those things down or paying them off. So that will free up your credit. It'll also improve your credit if you eliminate your debts, so you can get yourself in a little bit better position. But pay off debt. I would save an emergency fund. And the reason I would save an emergency fund on top of what it's going to take to buy the home is when you buy a home, you'll likely need to do things in that home, and you'll be tempted to. Whether you need to do them or not, you're going to want to, swap things out or change things up. So I would strongly suggest have a nice little chunk saved up if possible, just so you're prepared in case something bad happens. You no longer can call a landlord and say, "Hey, my something went out. You're the dude or the girl if you're a girl." So the first thing that I would suggest is I would go to lenders. So when you're getting a mortgage, what I suggest is get at least two mortgage companies to compete against each other, especially right now. So right now, rates are crazy and nobody is buying homes. So what that means is anyone that is affected by rates, realtors, lenders, title companies, all of the whole industry, they are freaking struggling. They will do deals for way better deals than you would ever imagine because they would rather have a little bit of money versus no money. So grab two lenders. You can go to a regular big bank if you would like. I don't recommend it. I think regular mortgage, if you just Google mortgage companies near me, there's going to be like 15 different ones. You could do Lending Tree, Rocket, whatever. There's like a 1,000 of them. But I would submit the info to both and find out what you qualify for. Once you know what you qualify for, now you have the next step, which is get a realtor. And I always suggest this is like from experience, extremely important to get a good realtor. The way that you know that they are a good realtor is they do tons of transactions and they're freaking rich. That is how you get a good realtor. When you're buying, you're not paying the realtor any money, so it doesn't matter if they're the best or the worst. They're just finding you a house. Every home that I have found and bought, I found it on the MLS, I found it on Zillow. Realtors will also tell you they hate Zillow. I don't know why everyone hates Zillow. It's been absolutely fantastic for me. I think they don't pay realtor fees or something, which is why realtors don't like it. I can't remember why. So find a good realtor. The reason I say find a good realtor is if they've done tons of transactions, they are really good at getting deals done and negotiating things on your behalf that the average dude that sells one home a year probably isn't good at. They lack experience. That's going to go across the board in any industry. I own a solar company. If I'm pumping out tons of solar deals, I'm going to figure out how to get a deal done where the dude that does 3 deals a year probably is going to run into a roadblock and not know what to do. So find your realtor that is probably not your friend Unfortunately, I have a lot of friends that are realtors and some of them are probably great, but I find the one that is going to do the best job. You're not paying them, get a good one. They're also going to be familiar with strange scenarios that the other guy that is not going to be familiar with. Next thing, the biggest surprise when I was buying my first home was how much money I needed down. There's a loan called an FHA loan. This is pretty common knowledge, so if you're watching this like, holy cow, this is basic. It's because a lot of people don't know how to do this. So keep that in mind. I had no clue how to do it, and I had a family members that have owned homes. So an FHA loan is a loan that allows you to only put 3.5% down. My first home that I bought in southern Utah was 195 grand. My entire down payment was under $7,000. So you can see, and I wasn't making a lot of money at the time. So I was able to save up whatever, I think I had 10 or 11 or 12 grand by the time I actually bought the home and closed on it. It took a long time. It was a short sale, but it was a great deal and I was patient. So I put under $7,000 down. My mortgage was super low because interest was also low at that time. And then later on, I actually refinanced it and got an even lower rate, got rid of mortgage insurance. Because if you're doing less than 20% down, you're going to have something called PMI, which is private mortgage insurance. And it's just basically a bet. It's an insurance policy that says, hey, if you don't pay your mortgage, like it's their safety net basically. So you can get rid of this later. So if you don't have enough to put 20% down, which a lot of people don't, especially right now when the market is wild. If you live in California and you're listening to this like I do, and you're like, yeah, let me go buy a house. Every house in my neighborhood is $3 million. Like that's pretty unattainable for most people. It's unattainable for me. If I had to buy my house right now, I would be freaking screwed. So there are many reasons as to why I think it's important to buy a home, but if you're already going to be paying housing, you may as well be throwing it into the way that I look at buying a home is you're putting your money into a savings account that you get back later. Real estate always goes up. That's a controversial statement, but what it really does is this. It goes a little bit of wave and the wave is trending upward. On average, you're going to go up 3 to 5% per year. Some years significantly higher than that. Some years, lower. If you're in the age range of, if you're a millennial, you remember 2008 market crashes, home values tank. And I think that tainted a lot of people, my generation, because they're still waiting for the market to crash again. And guess what? It might not. There's a high likelihood it doesn't. And when it crashes, it's probably going to crash to a low that's maybe what it was in 2020 or 2021. But it doesn't really matter. If you're planning on sticking around there for a little while, it's going to always rebound. The only exception to that rule, I would say, is if you're buying a mobile home. I don't suggest it. They don't increase in value. And if you're buying in the ghetto, those are kind of your only places that you may not see your home value increase because of crime or whatever. So I would still rather buy in the ghetto than rent in a nicer place because I know at least I'm getting my money back when I sell. So yeah, that first home that I bought, just so this kind of paints a little bit of a picture as to why I'm a huge proponent for this. I bought the home for 195 grand. I lived there for 3, maybe 4 years. I sold the home for like 325 grand and I improved it. I put a little bit of money into it. I'm somewhat handy. So when I buy a home, I don't care if it's perfect. It doesn't have to be. And in this market, you're probably not going to find anything perfect. And you may have to go to the outskirts of town in order to afford it. I would still do that versus rent. You can improve the property along the way. And as you're improving it, you'll live there for at least 2 years or more. You can now sell that house and not pay any type of capital gains taxes on the increase, up to $250,000 if you're single and up to $500,000 if you're married. So that's a pretty huge tax-free win for money you were already spending. I did that a few different times. I bought a home in Draper, Utah, and that was what I thought was super expensive at the time. It was like $570,000, lived there for 3 or 4 years as well, and sold it for almost $800,000. So every time I've owned a home, I've gotten a nice little chunk to go to my next home, upgrade, do a little bit better on the next one. So you work your way up. You're not starting off in your dream home. I wouldn't have started off in this house. So I started off in a very modest, in fact, I think at the time I bought my original first house, I had gone to the banks, got qualified, and I had qualified at that time for like 350,000 bucks. And I was deathly afraid to spend that. They might tell you you qualify for one thing, but mentally I didn't feel like I qualified for what that payment amount was going to be, because I was not used to paying anything over a few $100 for renting a room from a random stranger. So keep that in mind. Find out what you qualify for, get a payment feel for that, mentally prepare yourself for what that's going to feel like, and maybe don't max yourself out. It's, you know, if you qualify for 3 or 4 or 500,000 bucks and you don't feel comfortable spending that, then look inside the budget that you feel comfortable spending. That's what I would suggest, because it sucks to be house poor, and it sucks to be stressed about money. So I'm not saying put yourself, you know, don't stretch yourself too thin. So those are kind of the first little main tips. There's going to be things that are going to apply to this video as well that I can do on another video so it doesn't get too long, but cleaning up credit. Another thing that I want to talk about is like how to expunge a record for criminals, because it's a topic that most people don't have a clue how to do. And I think it's important, to, depending on what you do for work, but it could be important, and it's more of just like a win mentally. So those are my tips and suggestions around buying a home and why it's important. You'll get your money back. That's why.